prompted me to get involved with a brainwave. And Dr. Robin Fancourt, who is she's the founder, really, the person who founded Brainwave. And she is she's sadly no longer with us, but she was a leading expert internationally in the field of child trauma and child abuse and neglect. She's a New Plymouth pediatrician. And Brainwave's work is based on the latest research in neuroscience, which sounds terribly pointy-headed, but it's very, very simple. It's about the power of relationship and how relationships actually physically build our brains. It's amazing stuff. And this all came about in the 90s when there was a kind of explosion of knowledge about the brain, because we were able to see inside a living brain for the very first time, and with MRIs and scans of all sorts. So you could see absolutely what impact relationships were having on the brain, and they are, without a doubt, the most powerful architect of the developing brain. So that's why our relationship with they call it primary caregiver now, but mums and dads, our parents, are so important and so incredibly important, particularly in those early years, because most of the brain develops in the first year of life. About 80% of the brain development takes place in that first year of life. Amazing.
So true. So it leads on to my next question, really. Another quote from your book that resonated with me, anyway, is social connection. Those who are happiest in retirement were the people who nurtured relationships with family, friends, and community. You mentioned that retirement villages can play a good role in this, so how so?
Oh, retirement villages are amazing places for connection. Goes without saying, really, doesn't it? You're here with a bunch of like-minded people. You're all sharing the experience. And there's so much going on in a retirement village. You don't have to be involved if you're not a joiner of groups and things, but you're in an environment where you meet people pretty much on a daily basis. So that's incredibly powerful. And I think also the fact of not having to worry about security. You've got medical assistance on tap should you have health issues, and most of us have health issues as we get a bit older, of one sort or another. And I think there's a lot of comfort and security to be had there. But relationships are incredibly important. And the great news is that we're on the right side of the U-curve of happiness. So you're happiest, apparently, when you're very young, and also when you get older. Not so much in your 30s and 40s. That's when you bottom out and you get, completely obsessed with looking after older parents and younger children and paying the mortgage and climbing the ladder at work and all of those things. So I think that's a really good thing to remember, because if we're on the upside of the U-curve of happiness, then we should make the most of it. And relationships actually give you a burst of oxytocin in your brain, which is the feel-good chemical in your brain. So that's wonderful, but it also will reduce inflammation. So if you're struggling with arthritis and all of those sort of aging things that we we all do. Being together, enjoying a laugh, being optimistic. Those things are really important.
I totally agree. I went into a came into a retirement village relatively young, I was only 69, but best move I ever made.
Yeah. People, everybody says that, don't they? Yeah.
Those residents, yes. Okay, next. You said you don't particularly like change. Same job for nearly 40 years, same home for 40 years, same husband for 50.
I know.
Change is inevitable and often arrives when we least expect it. What have you learned about change and resilience in your personal journey?
I think, I hate change, I really do. But I found that through change you grow. And so that's really important, to embrace change. I think, I've just found that things often turn out better than you think. And so yes, I try to teach the children to embrace change and to not be afraid, and also to grasp every opportunity that comes along. You know, opportunities are wonderful things. I never really set goals ever in my life, which is kind of against the current thinking, really. But I do remember my parents saying to me, you know, embrace those opportunities as they come along, and that stuck with me. Yeah. Good.
There are some practical tips in your book. I especially enjoyed the chat on aging with style. Two pieces of advice that I really like: embrace colour and don't try to wear all your jewellery at once. Do share some more of your style with me?
Well, I don't profess to be a style guru. I must say that at the outset. And increasingly so, I'm a Hilda experience, because we're living on the Coromandel a lot at the moment. We have a beach place down there in a few acres that we're planting in native forest. And so I just get about in jeans and a t-shirt or a plaid shirt of Chris's, you know, most of the time. And then when we come to the city, I kind of open the wardrobe and I look in there and I think, what are people wearing these days? What should I wear? What is smart casual? But I guess for me personally, I'm less is more girl. And I don't like to have to think about it too much. So I'm loving dresses, and the capsule wardrobe, you know, a couple of pairs of trousers and a few different tops. Everything mixes and matches. Yes, so I'm not, I think in the book, I sought advice from one of the wonderful stylists who works with us at the telly, and Sonia Greenslade was always my go-to person. She is really good at dressing older people, but with a little bit of an edge. You know, she's clever, so you feel youthful without looking like mutton dressed as lamb, you know, which is always a worry, I think. Yeah. Yeah. But also that, you know, when I always had really dark hair, and then Chris got a melanoma a few years ago now, and my hair turned white almost overnight. It was extraordinary. But apparently that's really common. It happens. If you get a big shock, quite often that happens. So that plus COVID, you know, helped me to go from black, almost, almost to white, almost sort of white. So, but happily he's good now. So yes, fingers crossed.
Very good to you.
Yes.
You've also researched healthy ageing and the places in the world where people live the longest, most fulfilling lives. What were the key conclusions with that research?
Yes, the blue zones. I expect you've probably all heard about the blue zones in the world where everybody seems to live longer and healthier lives. So the key is not so much living longer, but making those years as healthy and fulfilling as possible, really. So these are certain areas in the world where this happens, and among them Sardinia, Costa Rica, a Greek island, and Okinawa. And they've found that in all these places, people are still actively engaged in the landscape. They're climbing a lot. They're quite hilly places, a lot of these, so they're doing hills pretty much every day. They have very close social groups, so relationships are paramount. They also have a thing called, in Okinawa, a thing called ikigai.
Oh.
Ikigai is purpose. So they don't have a word for retirement. They talk about ikigai, and it's a reason for getting out of bed in the morning. So having a purpose is really important, and having optimism. So making lemonade from life's lemons, and always trying to think of the good and the bright side, which sounds very Pollyanna-ish, but it really works. And you can actually fake it till you make it with optimism, because I'm so not an optimistic person. I tend to always think about the terrible things that could happen, and then I'm pleasantly surprised when they don't. But everybody says, all the experts say, that optimism is a really important part of healthy aging. And of course, diet. So in Okinawa, they have a thing called hara hachibu, which is only eating 80% of what's on your plate. And they tend to have small plates as well. So that's a bit of a hint. And also overnight fasting. So early dinner, and then not having breakfast until 15 hours after your dinner. Apparently that is a good way to keep your weight even. Yeah. But you don't want to lose too much weight as you age. That's another thing I've found. Yes.
Right. After 40 years of live broadcasting, from nightly news to telephones, where anything could happen, one of the qualities people admire most of you is your sense of humour and ability not to take yourself too seriously. Do you think humour is more important as we age?
I think humour is important at any age, really. I can always remember my dad sitting me down on his knee after I'd done something particularly bad, and he would always give me the same lecture, and it always was, you must remember these things. And the first thing was honesty, the second thing was tolerance, the third thing was a sense of humour, fourth was kindliness, fifth was something else that I've forgotten, but it's in my book. But anyway, yeah, sense of humour was always something that we had a lot of laughs as a family, and it's something that I really enjoy with our kids and our grandchildren. You know, we've got 8 grandchildren, and they all live in Auckland, which is just the most wonderful thing in the world. And they range in age from 19 down to 1. And so we've just been blessed, really, and I get an enormous amount of joy from them. And you mentioned telethons, Mel, and I think those are some of my most enduring memories of being on the box, because that was a time when you could actually be yourself, you know, because the news presenter role is very much a performance, and you're delivering weighty stuff, and hopefully, and so you need to be a bit serious. And I can always remember when I started doing the network news, people would say, "You never smile anymore. You never laugh. What's the story?" And I said, well, it's really, really hard to laugh when, you know, Iraq, we're going to war in Iraq, we're doing, you know, people are killing each other in Serbia, and so it just wasn't the platform for that. So telethon was a huge outlet for everybody to be themselves and to make complete fools of themselves on the telly. And also another one of those times for everybody in the country, it seemed, back in the day, would be raising money for these wonderful causes, and it would be a unifying thing. And I can remember having such fun with people like Ray Columbus and Billy T. James. One year we got together, Natalie Brunt and I were fronting Auckland's part of the telethon, and we decided to do an item, and we were going to be the Supremes, and so we needed another couple of people, you see. We needed Diana Ross, and of course Billy T. James was just perfect for her. and then we had Ray Columbus, we called Ray Columbuson, who was always up for a bit of fun. And we squeezed ourselves into silver lame with feather boas and the whole 9 yards, and we did Baby Love. And just had the best time. And they were such good sports. Everybody was amazing at telethon. They were prepared to make complete and utter burps of themselves to raise money. And working, I think, with Peter Sinclair was another of my highlights. He was one of my childhood idols. I can remember going to the Lower Hutt Town Hall to see the Come On stage show. Does anybody remember Come On? Yeah. Yes, and it was such a great show, and he was so good as the front man. You know, he was always very sort of out there, and he was very hip and happening, and the DJ that everybody listened to back in the day. And but he was sadly passed away, but he was fiercely intelligent. Really, he would sit off to the side. In fact, Suzanne Lynch from the Chicks has just released her memoir, and she remembers him sitting off to the side during the Come On tapings, videotape they used to use back in the day, and he would be reading history while the go-go dancers were on stage doing their thing. And then he, you know, when it came time for him to come on and do his piece, he'd come sliding in and he'd go, hey, ooh, you know, all the DJs speak. And he was just the most remarkable talent. He could turn it on, turn it off at will. He, skinny as a rake, lived on a diet of coffee and cigarettes. He did. He looked so youthful right up until the end. Yeah, he was really so generous as well with his knowledge of performance, really, and you'd understand that, because I don't know whether any of you know, but Mel's daughter Claire Chitham is one of our most wonderful actresses. So you're very familiar with, with all the performances,
Yes.
aren't you?
Yes, I am. Where am I? You write that growing older often makes us wiser, but also bolder. Perhaps more willing to try new things. Has that been true for you?
Yes, it has, actually. I have tried new things. Line dancing. You might have tried it yourself, which I find very challenging. I'm hopeless, absolutely hopeless. But just when I've got all the steps together, they turn around to another wall and then I start all over again. So, but it's great fun, and we all fall apart laughing. I do this up on the Coromandel in the Whitianga Town Hall. And what else have I done? Learning to ride a bike. This is another thing I never did as a child. So my husband's a great bike rider, having grown up in Christchurch. So he wants to do all the fabulous bike trails, and he won't do them without me. So I have to learn to ride a bike, so that's me. And I really love to do anything that's adventurous. I love, hurling myself off. On an abseiling. And no, I can't do bungee. It just doesn't. No, I don't think I could manage bungee. But I've done abseiling and what do you call it? When you're on a wire and zip lining, all that sort of stuff. I love that. Kayaking.
Well done, you. Right, you wrote extensively about the link between physical and mental health. What are your top tips for strengthening mental well-being as we age?
Strengthening mental well-being. I think, well, the key, of course, is relationships, I think, but also nature, getting out in nature. I find I'm a pretty mercurial sort of person. So I can be very up one day and down the next, and I think on down days, I really find it very healing to be in nature, to be out, to feel the sand under my toes, to paddle in the water, to be in the bush. We're so lucky here to have all these amazing places to go outdoors and listen to the birds. Those simple pleasures, I think. Also, you can. I'm not a big fan of pharmaceuticals, so I would always try first to get to the root cause of what's making me feel not so great. And talk it out, I think. Yeah. Which sounds easy, and I know that an awful lot of people struggle with depression. And I think loneliness is endemic in our societies now, because we've become so siloed, really. And the wider community can provide so much support. Your neighbours, for instance, just a smile when you're walking around the block can be helpful. So yeah, I think loneliness it's like smoking a pack of 15 cigarettes. It's more dangerous to your health than smoking. So yeah, I think it's incumbent on us all to look out for people who are not included. And to have a kind word. Yeah.
I think that this is where living in a retirement village for people who may suffer from loneliness, I can't sort of recommend it highly enough, because where I live, I'm not a lonely person, but we have got, we've got residents who probably are a bit lonely, but they know they can always go into the lounge.
Yes.
Sit there, and after about 10 minutes, someone will always come in for a cup of tea and chat. There are a few, and I can't recommend it highly enough, actually.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah. Okay, finally, one of the most important parts of life is finding inspirational figures around us. As the mother of the nation, you continue to inspire generations of Kiwis through your work and your writing. If there's one message you'd like us to take away from this talk, what would that be?
I don't know where that came from, that mother of the nation.
I was going to say, you probably over that one.
I feel, I sometimes think, oh my goodness. I think it was, do you know what? I think it was Kevin Black. I think he was having a go at me, actually. But it just stuck. It just stuck. I think seize the day. Seize the day. We're lucky to be alive. And there's a wonderful quote, actually, from Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor and a philosopher. And he said, "Our days are numbered. Use them to open the windows of your soul to the sun." And I just think that's a gorgeous image. Use them to open the windows of your soul to the sun. It's just, yeah. So I think that's a nice ethos to hold.
Definitely. Thank you, Judy. We've got a little bit of time. If anybody out there has any questions for Judy?
Yes, I do.
Speak now or
Thank you for coming on your birthday.
Oh, it's such a pleasure.
Sharing it with us. I'm just curious of any interactions you've had in public, like you're at the supermarket and suddenly someone realises who you are. Have you got any funny stories like that to share?
Sorry, can everybody hear that question?
So the question was, strange interactions with members of the public who often people kind of think they know you from somewhere, but they're not sure. so I get a lot of that. But a while ago, I was on the phone to a plant nursery up north, ordering up some plants, and we came to the end of the conversation, and the woman on the other end said to me, so yes, I didn't get your name. What's your name again? And I said, it's Judy Bailey, B-A-I-L-E-Y. Spelled it for it, and she had this gasp, and there was a long pause. She said, "Oh, you poor thing! Did you have the name first, or did she?" I didn't enlighten her. I didn't think she had very nice things to say. Oh, dear. Anybody else?
Judy, how have your family coped with your popularity and your children growing up through school? How do they cope with being so famous?
That's a really good question, because you do have a bit of a public profile when you're on the telly 5 nights a week. And people always have opinions, even if they don't know you, they've always got an opinion, and some of them are not very nice. But the kids have just always grown up with me. They don't know any different, really. I feel it more for them, I think. I often check in with them, about it, and they say, "Oh, look, Mum, it is what it is," and there are upsides to it and downsides, but overall the upsides win out every time, and they're pretty well adjusted. We don't lead a sort of celeb-y lifestyle at all, never have. I think probably because I'm a little bit anxious socially. I find it quite hard. I'm quite shy, and so I hate those sort of red carpet things where you have to stand in front of a backdrop do all that. So I tend to avoid all that. And now, of course, you know, I'm so long in the tooth, nobody's interested at all. So it's,
Sure.
no, it's, yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
When you start work reading the news at say 6 o'clock, what time do you actually start work?
Starting work was a movable feast, really. In the beginning, when we were doing top half, I wouldn't go in until about 3:30 or 4 even sometimes, because I was reading the news segment, which was very short, and John was on the couch. And then I moved to the couch with him, and then it became so I was more involved in the program, so I had to start going in a bit earlier. But I really wanted to be there for the children after school. I wanted to be able to pick them up from school, and so I clung to that for as long as I possibly could. And then when I moved to the network news, it got a lot more serious, and so I had to be there about 12 until, and then I was out the door pretty much straight away after the bulletin. But beforehand, we had production meetings. We'd discuss the shape of the bulletin, what would be the lead, you know, and the aspects of the lead, whether there'd be a live cross to do, and so you'd be researching that. You start listening to all the radio bulletins first thing in the morning, so morning report was a must listen, yeah, but now, you know, I feel for them so much because they've got deadlines all through the day that they're chasing, because there are so many different outlets that they've got to be across. So many different social media, you know, they've got to be on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and the whole 9 yards. I don't do any of that stuff. I really don't. It scares me witless. I'm not sure which button to push, you know, to whether I'm sending it to one person or to the entire world. So yeah, that's my fear. But
You've got hair and makeup.
yeah, hair and makeup, that's another thing. That's why I always had short hair, because you know, it takes forever in makeup otherwise. So that usually took about an hour, and truckloads of makeup and stuff. So yes, it was a joy to be able to grow the hair a bit. Yeah.
Anybody else? Speak now.
Could I just ask, what is your background? How did you get into this? And things like your accent and your...
In England. I'm born in New Zealand at Palmerston North. My dad was at Ohakia at the time, and he was posted to London in the late 50s, and so the whole family went with him. And I couldn't breathe in London. I was about 6 at the time, and it was very smoggy, and they had pea super fogs and whatnot. And I got very ill. I kept getting pneumonia and all sorts of nasty things. And the doctor said, well, we can't, you know, look after her unless she gets out of London. She's not going to make it. And so they sent me off to Sussex, to a little boarding school when I was 6. And I used to get on the train at Waterloo, clutching my little tin of Quality Street toffees, and I'd go off to boarding school. And I think that's probably where my accent came from. And then we came back when I was probably about 3 or 4 years later than after that. And I went to a little primary school in Lower Hutt. And the kids bullied me incessantly because I had this rather plummy accent. It's quite a lot more plummy than it is now. And then I went off to boarding school again for college in Martin to Ngātawa. And I decided very early on that I wanted to write because I just loved words. I loved telling stories and that sort of thing. So I applied to go to the Wellington Polytech School of Journalism, which was a one-year diploma course. And I got in, and I was intending to work for magazines. I wanted to work. I don't know whether any of you remember Thursday magazine. Do you? Marcy Russell. Yes, it was. It was the thinking women's magazine. You know, it was great. And I really wanted to work with Marcia because she was an amazing journalist. And so the course was divided into broadcasting and print and magazine journalism. So news and magazine journalism. And it was set in some prefabs. They were all in different prefabs. And I ended up in the wrong prefab on enrollment day. So I didn't end up in the magazine course at all. I ended up with a whole bunch of news people. And I thought, gosh, it wasn't until halfway through the morning that I figured out I was in the wrong place. And I thought, these people are really interesting. They're very opinionated, stroppy lot of people. And so I decided I'd like to stay here. So that's how I ended up in news. Really, just pure accident of navigation. Yeah.
I want to ask something. Hi. Did the book Ikigai inspire you to write your book, or?
No, it wasn't. It was the other way around, really. The inspiration for the book really came from people around me who were saying to me all the time, old age ain't for sissies, you know, in very somber tones. And I thought, well, you know, this is a whole new area of my life, and I want to learn how to do it, and how to navigate it, and how to get the best out of it. And so I was thinking about that, you know, and I was thinking about writing a book, and then out of the blue, HarperCollins rang. You see, I'm a firm believer in serendipity, and these things just come along. And so I thought, well, yes, I'd love to write a book.
Yeah.
So, and then I went down a gazillion rabbit holes on the research, and I came across the blue zones.
Okay.
And then, blow me down, just before the book was published, the Netflix thing on blue zones came out. And I thought, dang it! but it's very interesting, the whole aging thing. And the research, there are researchers all over the world, multiple studies, but they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all saying that relationship is the fundamental pillar of healthy aging. Yeah,
So that helped you,
reassuring.
the relationship helped you to stay so young yet, I think.
Oh, that's my
Yeah.
husband. He's a gorgeous man. He really is. I met him when I was 18.
Oh.
And we sort of fell madly for each other. And 3 weeks later, he asked me to marry him.
Oh,
So
after 2
my
weeks.
parents were horrified.
Only 3 weeks.
Yes, when we were, Mum and Dad said, oh, where's she going? You'll have to wait for a year. And so we said, okay, and off we went.
So what was he doing at the time?
He was in television. He's a
Oh.
television producer and director.
Okay.
Evolving now. Not retired. But no, he is retired.
Yeah.
And so he understands. He's always understood. He's always been my greatest supporter.
Yeah.
And he's very insightful. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky. Very lucky.
Anybody else? Okay. I believe Chris has your turn.
Just a few bit of admin. We are, Judy's going to hang around for a bit, which is great. If you want to have a chat to her, be delighted to, if you'd like to do that. At the same time, we're going to run some tours. We've got Lynn, Rachel, and Fiona who will come and grab those that have booked some tours, come in and show you our wonderful apartments. And then when you return, we'll have some food laid out, and then after that we have some lovely spot prizes, some signed copies of Judy's book.
Yeah.
I think are included. But in the meantime, I think Chris has got a gift of thanks.
Yo. Wow, so beautiful.
Have you got a bag, Val?
It's really good.
Such a delight. So please do feel free just to ask me anything, you know.
If you don't mind me just saying a couple of quick words, Judy. I've been really looking forward to hearing you speak, and I think whoever invited you to come here, that was an inspired choice. And to put things in perspective, the word you used, you left TV in 2005, you said, so that was the year that I became a partner in a law firm, more importantly, a year that I was married, and I was 28 at the time. So the time that you spent delivering, news to the country were really my formative years. And back then, you always watched the news. And
We're really lucky.
but you just did. That's where apart from opening the Herald first thing in the morning and watching the news at night, that's where you learnt what was happening in the world. And I think New Zealanders have an incredible interest in international events. And back then, the news was credible, but not just because of the message, but the way it was delivered. So I was really keen to sit down and listen to you today because you read a script, I suppose, back then, but today you didn't. Today you delivered a message and you did it personally and with strong credibility. And I thought the message you delivered about evolving as opposed to retiring was superb, though I must admit, when it comes time to go to bed, retirement is what I want. But no, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
We had a wonderful narrator, host, Mel. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Enjoy, and tours will be running with Fiona and the team right now.